Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Friday, the 21st of July. I'm Aidan Macdonald and today I'm joined by Tony Haggerty. Tony, how are you?
I'm all right. We sorted our technical issues, didn't we? It's kind of always a nightmare when you're at the mercy of these things. But hey, we're here and we're live and we're talking about Celtic, so let's do it.
Indeed. Just before we get into it, guys, firstly, thanks for joining us at the slightly earlier time today. We appreciate that. And secondly, for anybody that's interested, the ticker tape down below and in the description for anybody that's listening in the podcast format can subscribe to the Celtic Way website, support top quality journalism, covering the club you all love. And obviously, recently we've had Tony had his big match verdict out after the game against Yokohama F Marinos. Today we've got a piece from Duco James on the website profiling Kwon, one of the Celtic transfer targets, who's reportedly going to be an imminent signing. At the weekend, we'll have sort of reaction from the Gambo Saka game. There'll be a scouting piece going out on Monday about a certain player we're talking about today. So to get involved in that, if you haven't already, you can go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, as people have probably seen by the title of this video, the first thing we're going to be talking about is Celtic have reportedly made an offer for Legia Warsaw defender Maik Nawrocki. Now, I've probably butchered that pronunciation. Tony and I were briefly talking about it off air. As Tony said, he'll probably just be known as Rocky. I might just go with that for the rest of this video.
I think he has to get Rocky, doesn't he, Aidan? It serves a lot of purposes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I think I'll probably go with Rocky for the rest of this, until we get more details, so I don't keep butchering the poor guy's name. But he's a 22 years old defender for Legia Warsaw, and it's reports from Poland are saying that Celtic are in competition for him with Galatasaray. Apparently, Celtic have sort of submitted a bid of at least, I think it's about 5.2 million euros, which I think is roughly about 4.5 million, Tony, give or take.
Yeah, he's supposedly worth 5 million, isn't he? 6'3".
Total. Yeah, he's 6'3". Played plenty of football for Legia Warsaw last season. Also, his coaches came out and made comments saying that the club have had an offer for the player. He said you could expect him to leave our club soon. The information's already leaked out. There's a serious offer on the table, but for now these are internal consultations. So obviously this story kind of just broke yesterday. Tony, not long after Ryan and I did the morning briefing, Celtic was getting linked with Xavier Mobamba, another centre-half. So I would be quite happy if Celtic were bringing a couple of centre-backs in, to be honest. So I guess firstly, what's your thoughts on the link? Do you like the profile of him? I know there's maybe not been a lot floating about on him. There was the famous YouTube or Twitter compilation was floating about. How do you look at him on Y Scout yesterday? As I mentioned, we will have a scouting report up on him on Monday. I guess just what's your first impressions based off the sort of limited things you've seen of him?
I mean, Brendan Rodgers had a good look at him because he was in the team that beat Leicester in a Europa League clash, wasn't he? They beat them 1-0. So Brendan Rodgers will know about him and will have had a look at him, maybe like the look of him during that game. So this is something that you can sort of see. I always try and connect dots and join the lines, Aidan, and this is somebody that Brendan Rodgers has maybe had a look at that night and thought he's decent, and kind of kept tabs on and monitored progress. And now, if there's a serious offer on the table, you have to think that it's a serious offer from Celtic, and it might go to and fro with Galatasaray. But I think the young lad might see Celtic as a viable option playing in the Champions League. And yeah, he ticks the box, doesn't he? A big, strapping centre-back, Aidan. I think we watched the other day, and whilst it is a pre-season friendly, it counts for nothing, it means nothing. The concession of 6 goals is still something that you want to get shot of that as quickly as possible, don't you? You want to bolster that defence, and what we know is that the defence isn't the same without Alistair Johnston and Cameron Carter-Vickers, is it? So I think if you've got designs on being a Champions League competitive team, then you have to bolster your defence. And I think any centre-back coming in, and especially at that height and that profile, if it's Rocky or Mbayama, I think be welcomed by the Celtic supporters.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, once again, me and Ryan were talking about this yesterday. with Mbayamba, or however we're going to pronounce his name. Like I say, it's not my strong point when it comes to working out, and I'm always don't want to be sort of sounding disrespectful. So, like I say, I'll go for Rocky for this centre half for now. But when we were talking about Mbayamba yesterday, I did say that obviously you don't want to dive in and just get like the first defender that you're linked with. You want to make sure it's been like a resolute process. Now the transfer window's been open for a long time, hasn't it? So
Yeah.
Celtic have probably hopefully been scouting these guys for a while, maybe longer than that. We'll have to maybe keep an eye on it, but I think the profile wise it seems pretty positive, Tony. Same for the player we've been linked with yesterday. Don't know a lot about them, and probably until we have like a scouting report up or maybe Brendan Rodgers discusses it, or there's a wee bit more solidity to the link. Although there is the fact that Celtic have supposedly submitted an offer, I would say that there is quite a lot to it. I think it's the right profile of player the club should be going for. Somebody who has had a decent track record so far in a decent enough league. I'm not going to kid on. I'm an expert on the Portuguese league, the league in Poland, but probably you'd imagine a good chunk of it's a similar level to the Scottish Premiership, maybe if not slightly stronger in places. So I would say that somebody like this is the sort of player Celtic should really be trying to go for. Whether or not, as it always is with these things, can he make the step up to the Champions League, as you pointed out, he's played against Leicester and Brendan Rodgers in Europe before and did quite well, so he's got a European pedigree of some sort. Whether or not he'd be Champions League quality, we don't know, but I said to Ryan yesterday if every single player didn't have Champions League experience and that was putting Celtic off signing guys, then you wouldn't have a squad, would you?
No.
So kind of just need to temper expectations to that extent. But no, I'm feeling quite positive about this link, to be honest, at the moment.
I think Celtic are doing their due diligence on these players, aren't they? So, you can't complain that there's been no transfer movement, and then when there is sort of transfer movement, be underwhelmed at players coming in. Here are obviously players that have been on a list, or players that the manager has scouted himself. Well, not scouted himself, but has recommended. Because, as I say, he got up close and personal with him. He would have watched him in that game, or he would have watched it. Obviously, he watched his own team, but he would have saw someone that maybe shone, and he maybe thought, "I'll keep my eyes on him." So, that's kind of looking like someone that Brendan's had a real hand in recommending. And you want to sign players, you're going to have to pay the money for them, aren't they? They want 5 million for them, so Celtic have offered 4.5. So that's what they deem a serious offer. Mbayamba, he would come from Volendam in the Dutch league. Nobody had heard a lot about Virgil van Dijk when he came from Groningen, did they? And he didn't turn out too badly. So I'm just sort of saying it's, regardless of where they're coming from, clearly Celtic are doing their due diligence, and these are now players, as I keep saying, who are persons of interest. And it's up to Celtic to go and firm that interest up by making concrete offers. Seems that they've made a concrete offer for Rocky. We now wait and see what happens with that. In terms of Mbayamba, there's a strong link there, but we've got forum for plucking a defender from the Dutch league who did not too badly. I'm not comparing it with Virgil van Dijk, but I'm comparing the situation. He came from it's not one of the big three in Holland. As I say, he came from Groningen. So, and also striker Georges Giakoumakis came from VVV Venlo as well. So I'm not really perturbed about where these guys are coming from. I'm more concerned that can they do a job for Celtic? And at this minute, the links that are possibly bringing them towards Celtic suggest that the scouting department and the manager believe they could do a job for Celtic. So we wait and see. There's no real rush, as you say. Celtic don't play in the Champions League qualifiers to September. But I think it was the kind of concessions of the same kind of goals that have plagued Celtic at European level before that was a slight worry against Yokohama F. Marinos the other day, wasn't it? And the concession of 6. Now, we don't like conceding 6 goals in any game. I can accept it if it's a pre-season friendly, but everyone says that'll be fine when when they play Ross County on August the 5th, it's going to have to be fine when they play Ross County on August the 5th. But I think with the transfer activity now, I think there's a necessity possibly for Celtic to get defenders in just to make sure that everything is fine when the ball starts rolling for real.
Yeah, I completely agree, Tony. I think even with even with Carter Vickers and Alistair Johnston, when they come back, a lot of fans will probably feel Celtic need some defensive reinforcement regardless, never mind when they're both out injured. So I think these links to defenders are positive. Ryan actually did he went as a newsletter yesterday and it went up on the site today about how Celtic sort of the lack of transfer backing at the moment for Brendan Rodgers in terms of, big money signings, which this guy would probably fit into that bracket, between as you at least 4 to 6 million. Discussing how Celtic do need to be a bit more active. Then, of course, after that piece goes live, and then the reports come out about
there's a flurry of activity.
Yes, of course. You know it's like these things can happen, but I think a lot of what he says in his piece is still valid, based off concerns that some fans may have about whether or not the club was slipping into bad habits in a way after a lot of positive transfer windows under Ange Postecoglou. So, yeah, even though Celtic are suddenly being linked with 2 centre-backs, I would say that piece has still got a lot of merit that is on the site.
Yeah, I think everybody does things differently, don't they? Ange liked to kind of do his business early. But Ange did his business early because it was a market he was familiar with and it was players he knew he could go and get, and he knew about their situations. So Ange did his due diligence on those players before they came in, knew they were available at this time, and knew all the ins and outs in terms of release clauses, etc., etc., etc. Now, Brendan wants to put his own stamp on this Celtic team. There is no real rush to bring in a plethora of players. We've said before, yeah, if the lack of transfer activity is underwhelming to some supporters, then so be it. That's fair enough. They're entitled to that opinion. But I don't think for a minute that Celtic won't strengthen that team before they play the Champions League group stage matches. And I think you might find that nearer the end of the window, there'll be a lot of things happening in terms of your business. Not rush or panic, but I think Celtic is waiting to see how situations unfold. It's still relatively early, isn't it? And as you say, you don't want to rush into anything. And if you're spending £4.5, £5, £6 million on a player, got to be oven ready, first team ready, and got to get it right. So I think Celtic are perfectly within their rights to take their time. I think you and I both know, and a lot of the other supporters know, that they think there's a necessity for certain positions: goalkeeper, centre back, left back, midfielder, that kind of thing. That's what we would say. But we did the strength and depth video that's on the YouTube channel. You want to have a look at that, you can. And I think we discussed the first 3 positions were something that we needed bolstering in. So I think if the likes of yourself and myself are seeing that, I don't think the management and the scouting and the recruitment team are not seeing the same things as well. So the other day was just a wee kind of wake-up call in terms of the concession of goals, wasn't it? We've been in that kind of movie before, and I just think that when Brendan Rodgers came in, there was all this feel-good factor about 30 million war chest, and he's going to get so much money to spend, and then the Jota money came in, and everyone was saying, Celtic are going to go mental. At no time did anybody from Celtic ever say that. So I think they were just kind of, you have to... Brendan's assessing everything, isn't he? I wrote about it the other week in my newsletter as well, or in an opinion piece. He's assessed, he's scanned, he's now at the point where he's seriously looking at that team and saying, okay, this is what I need. Now let's get to work in terms of the transfer window. He's had a look at everybody. There is some players there that they'll have to shift. But now I think he's turning around and saying, there, and there. Let's get to work on that, guys. And this is why you're seeing Celtic being linked with certainly 2 central defenders in the past 24, 48 hours. And you've probably seen them get linked with other players from other positions as well in the next couple of weeks.
Fingers crossed, Tony. I mean, I'd be quite happy with both. Doesn't need to be these two players specifically, but I'd be quite happy with both centre backs coming in, or two centre backs coming in, I should say. I think it is a position needs a bit of depth, even when Carter Vickers is fit and Starfelt's firing on all cylinders. We've also had our reservations about Kobayashi. I think we've both came to the agreement that Stephen Welsh probably isn't good enough. We kind of discussed that in the squad depth video that you mentioned. So I would be quite happy if Celtic did bring two central defenders. And I understand that maybe two players in that position isn't the priority. Getting one in probably is definitely, but I wouldn't be against two of them coming in. Just you also touched on Yokohama there. I know you and Ryan had a reaction, and Ryan and I discussed it yesterday. But they are the champions of the J League. They're a good side. And I think that combined with the humidity and Celtic maybe not being up to full fitness is probably what led to the scoreline being so wide. I know David Turnbull did score then, but that kind of just made it look slightly better. There could have been a few more goals as well if it wasn't for Joe Hart making saves in the first half. So, I don't need too much into pre-season friendlies, Tony, to be honest.
No, I try not to, but I go before and I said before that it's idiosyncrasies and behaviours, isn't it? Yeah, I agree with everything you've said there about that, and I also think that Brendan Rodgers has only had like a week or so with the whole first team squad back, so he's been working with some of the youth players that came on, Daniel Kelly, McPherson, guys like that, and Ben Summers. So, but I've been let maybe a week that he's had to work with every first team player at his disposal. So yeah, I mean, I perfectly agree with all that assessment. I'm just talking about the actual concession of bread and butter goals, Aidan. Look, four of them were, two of them were well worked. The other four came from were preventable, weren't they? From mistakes, from loose passes, Starfelt being caught, that kind of stuff. Those kind of behaviours that you want to see ironed out, and you want to see it ironed out from pre-season onwards. Yeah, there's nothing at stake. Get all that, and I thought from the middle to front at times they looked very good. Again, we highlighted that Maida, Abada, and Hatate were the real positives from that. So, yeah, I mean, it's not, as I say, I'm not overly worried or duly concerned, and my head's on fire. You're pointing out, you're reacting to what you're seeing, and it's not an overreaction. Celtic want to make inroads in Europe. The reason they take on these friendlies against teams like that are halfway through their season is because it's kind of the level of competition you're going to get. It's maybe below the level of competition you're going to get at Champions League level, but it's a team that's, halfway through their season. They're decent, they're slick, they can move the ball about, and it's a competitive, match in terms of that. So, and I get that there'll be all sorts of players to come back into that Celtic team, so they'll be vastly improved. I just, I just don't like conceding 6 goals, Aidan. I don't care if it's a pre-season friendly. I care about that, and I'm not saying the players don't care about that either. But you're looking on and you're okay, fine. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. But you're talking about trying to build momentum, build and progress, and you've set your stall out now. The manager has said that European football's a target, and they want to make inroads in that. So you want to look on and think, okay, here's where we can progress in Europe. So I'm watching it closely, and as I say, I think signing a central defender has become a priority. Even after watching what happened against Yokohama, I'm looking for a vast improvement against Gamba Osaka. And I know, and commenters are saying friendlies mean nothing. Yeah, they do mean nothing. But what they can tell you is players can rule themselves in and rule themselves out, Aidan, of the manager's first team plans moving forward. Because it's all about attitude, even in those kind of games. And I think some players, are giving the manager food for thought in terms of ruling himself in and ruling himself out.
Yeah, exactly. I think pre-season friendlies, they kind of do become those things, maybe depending how the team gets on. That's when the discussion becomes important there. Do you know what it's like, Tony? But definitely, there was some positives to take from the Yokohama game and some things they had to work on. The reason I wasn't getting too worked up about it is I already knew kind of Joe Hart had his deficiencies and that the defence isn't as strong when Carter Vickers and Alistair Johnson aren't there, and when Celtic probably need a couple of reinforcements in that back line. So I didn't really learn anything new. It wasn't suddenly that there was a massive hole in midfield or we couldn't score up front. That would have probably concerned me a bit more, as much as you never want to lose 6 goals in any capacity. You never want to lose any goals. It wasn't anything new I felt I was learning in terms of struggles in the back four and struggles with the goalkeeper.
But I go back to the last 4 games of last season, Aidan, I think they conceded 10, didn't they? Without Cameron Carter-Vickers at the back of the pack there. So you kind of knew that already, that without him, that's a huge presence missing. And there are concession of goals there, isn't there? So I think, what did they concede? 3 against Rangers, conceded 4 against Hibs, 2 against St Mirren, 1 against Inverness in the Scottish Cup final. So, and people can say, the league was won, they'd switched off. But I'm talking about the mentality again. You know, that's how you approach. It's how you approach everything, isn't it? And I don't particularly care about results and friendlies to a great extent, but it's always it's about fitness. It's always about fitness when you don't get a result, isn't it? And then if you get a result, you just say fine. It means nothing. You brush it off. But I care about losing 6 goals. You know, as I say, results in pre-season friendlies, they're meaningless to an extent, but you care about certain things and behaviours, and as I say, those patterns, and as much as we lost 6, I thought Maida was terrific, and Brendan Rodgers' comments about playing Maida in a more central role is interesting, isn't it? And myself and Ryan spoke about, he got 11 goals last season. He could eclipse that no problem this season, couldn't he? Playing like that, he looked pretty clinical and deadly, and he made those kind of similar runs for the first 2 goals, and then he first time finish for his hat-trick goal was excellent. So I'm looking at that and thinking that's Brendan Rodgers tweaking that, and so so I'm pleased about that. So that's one of the behaviours that I'm happy about, Aidan.
Absolutely, and that probably brings us on, Tony, to a nice way we'll just touch on before finishing up that Rodgers' comments on Maida had basically now viewing him as a central striker. He said, I thought Dyson was outstanding against Yokohama. I like him more through the middle. I think he does a good job on the side, but there's a reason he plays for Japan. Up front, I think his penetration and his movement is terrific. I was really impressed with his touch too, because I think he's usually a player who's running away from the ball, but he had to win the game and set the game. I thought he was very good, and how he threatened their backline was also excellent. On top of that, something that we all know about, his pressing is phenomenal. I like players at the top end who can really press the game, and Dyson can definitely do that. Kyogo has been brilliant for Celtic, but he's still working his way to fitness. He's had a bit of an issue with his shoulder, hence the reason he only came off the bench against Yokohama. But I thought Dyson was outstanding. Now, Rodgers also a big fan of Dyson Maida. Probably helps Maida's cause that plays him through the middle and he scores a hat-trick. But yeah, also the comments about Kyogo there as well. Tony's still struggling with his shoulder. I don't know for definite, but I'm going to assume it's the same shoulder that kind of pestered him.
Yeah,
I should say last season. And he didn't really miss any games because of it, if I remember rightly. I think he was back.
been an underlying issue, hasn't it, for a while? So I
Yeah.
think maybe just the precaution of making sure that he's 100%, because you don't want to risk him, especially in a meaningless friendly, I guess, Aidan. And I'm not panicking at all about things. I'm just pointing out things that you're observing. You're asked to comment on what you're watching, and that's what we're doing. So, but Maida was. It's funny because Maida came into the side and got off to a flyer against Hibs, didn't he? When he played through the middle, I think on his debut,
Indeed,
didn't he?
Kyogo had his hamstring injury at that time,
Yeah,
and Maida played through the middle that night. Yep.
and he, and everybody thought, wow, this guy, well, he's going to score a barrel load like Kyogo, and then he was moved kind of wider, wasn't he? and we've all spoken about his crossing and stuff like that. At times it can be erratic, but when he gets it, when he gets it right, he gets it right. It's bang on the money. But I think there's so much more to Maida's game, and he is that whole pressing thing that Brendan. There's nothing in Brendan Rodgers' comments there that you would dispute, but it's nothing you kind of don't already know about Maida. But you've not really seen much of him as a centre forward, have you? And the times that you have, he scored goals, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's been pretty lethal through the middle when he's played for
Yeah.
Celtic, really.
So,
I know I think there might have been a game in his first sort of few months he played away at Hibs when they drew 0-0 and he maybe struggled a wee bit, but he was probably still adapting at that time. I've always thought he's been quite decent for Celtic when he's played through the middle in terms of what he offers. He plays that role for his national team, scored at a World Cup.
yeah.
Somebody might correct me, but I think he did play that role a bit for Yokohama F. Marinos as well, so it's not like it's something that's alien to him. And it's another option for Celtic through the middle. You would probably expect that when everybody's fit and firing, Kyogo would start, but if there's a game where Kyogo's injured or he's struggling, maybe O's not really at it either, being able to switch Maida and put him through the middles is another option for Celtic.
Well, I think it's Rodgers also saying there'll be a less of a reliance on Kyogo to provide the goals from the centre forward position. And he will be playing Maida through there and O as well. I think he's trying to turn the three of them into, challenging for the traditional number 9. I know I'm saying that in the kind of striker role, centre forward role. So, yeah, I think, and that's clearly something that Brendan Rodgers has watched in training, or maybe say to him, look, I quite like you doing this, and I like that pressing, but he wants him to press the back line as opposed to being out wide and chasing full-backs or wingers. He's got a wonderful engine, Maida, and he'll run all day. And if you can add clinical edge and sharpness that he showed or he displayed against Yokohama, then yeah, I'm all for that, because I quite like the look of him through the middle as well. And he looks quite cool, doesn't he? He doesn't really get phased by anything. He's non-demonstrative, I would say, kind of, focused. And was it Peter Grant who said in the commentary he was that fast that he even went into the stand and applauded his own goal because it was his doppelganger in the stand? I thought that was a brilliant line. Did look exactly like him. But yeah, I think if you want to take silver linings from the other day, then Maida and Abada and Hatate's performance was certainly that. And as I say, that part of the side doesn't worry me because they showed some mental fortitude equalising so quickly. They were 3-2 up at the break, and then there was all sorts of changes made. So I get all that, and I get that it meant nothing, but you're still want to see a bit more in terms of keeping the back door shut with defenders and stuff like that. So that was all. That was all I was saying. I know Brendan Rodgers get plenty of time to get this right, and he will get it right. And I think the links to the couple of defenders, central defenders, past 48 hours is great. I welcome that. Whether or not we get one or we get both, it's fine. But I'm just delighted that they're thinking along those lines, Aidan, because you can only constantly evolve if you keep replenishing the team and replenishing the squad and bringing in fresh blood and new faces. It stands to reason that's how you get better. And, there's plenty of scope for Celtic to get better, despite the fact that they won the treble last season. You can always get better. And I think that in order to get better, Celtic want to get better in Europe, don't they? And I think their eyes are on that. And I think the signings that come in will be telling, because you will see that they'll have an eye on being a competitive Champions League team.
Agreed, Tony. I would agree with all that. I think we'll leave it there for today, guys, because Tony, I know you're away to conduct something that'll be exciting. That should be. We'll not spoil it. We'll tease the viewers with that, but something that will be out on the YouTube channel on Sunday. So I'll let you get away to go and do that. You know you've been doing some prep. But yeah, guys, thanks very much for joining us today. We know it was a wee bit earlier than usual, just because of what Tony's away to do after this. But yeah, no, some good discussions, and we'll obviously potentially have a scout report up on Rocky, as I'm just going to keep calling him until I get official confirmation of how you pronounce his name. There'll hopefully be a scout report up on him with some more kind of analysis of what he can maybe bring to the team. But once again, anybody that's interested, subscribe to the Celtic Way website, support top quality journalism, covering the club you all love. You know, there'll be over the weekend, there'll be a kind of instant analysis piece from the game at the weekend, Tony's big match verdict, all sorts of stuff. So get yourself involved in that if you haven't already. Tony, thanks very much for joining us, mate. Always a pleasure.
No problem, Aidan. Thank you. And I hope everybody's a wonderful weekend. I would say result dependent, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about fitness, Aidan, isn't it? But hey, we hope for an improvement, certainly in the result against Gamble Saka. Enjoy it, guys. And I won't see you on Monday because I'm off for 2 weeks.
It's a good point, actually, Tony.
Come tomorrow, Aidan. Yes. So you're getting a break from your old dad here for 2 weeks on the briefing. So I'll be absent from that. So I shall see you. In fact, I'll be back probably for the flag unfurling, Aidan. I think that's my first day back after my holiday. So have a great couple of weeks, guys, and I'll see you then. And a well-earned rest, I think it's called, Aidan. Is that not right? I don't know, or maybe not, as the case may be.
I would say that's fair, Tony. That's actually a good point that you mentioned that, because I was forgetting. Yeah, so over the next couple of weeks, it'll be Ryan and I will be on the majority of briefings, but we're also hopefully going to be able to sprinkle in a few special guests, so you're not having to listen to Ryan and I every single day, Tony. We want to put the good viewers through that. But anyway, guys, thanks again for today. There'll be me and Tony. In fact, no, Tony, you and I will be back for the reaction on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll be back for the reaction.
That'll be live, but that's will be the last briefing for you from 2 weeks. So we'll see you for a reaction at the Gamble Saka game tomorrow, guys. Cheers.
Take care.